Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to welcome you to today's lecture on community solar, projects driven bottom-up by citizens. I would like to thank the International Solar Alliance and the Clean Energy Solutions Center who facilitate this webinar series. A few words about me before I joined Factor in 2010. I have been Director for Knowledge, Policies and Finance at the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. At IRENA, I was responsible for the initiative aiming in supporting community power, an initiative of multi-stakeholders called the Coalition for Action. This lecture of today is part of the Module 6 of the full training. The Module 6, as you know, is on socioeconomic aspects of solar energy. In this lecture, we will start with a brief definition of community power, and afterwards, we will jump into the main body of the presentation. Don't forget, at the end of the presentation, you will be given the chance to test your knowledge with a little quiz. The learning objective which this module aims to provide can be divided into three parts. First off, we will see a brief overview of community power. This is followed by a detailed description of the characteristics, status, and trend of community solar projects. Finally, we will talk about opportunities for policymakers to maximize the role of citizens in the solar revolution. But first of all, I would like to discuss on the role of citizens and to have a quick overview of how the role of citizens has evolved in the large-scale deployment of renewable energies, and in particular with solar technologies for power generation, as photovoltaic and concentrated solar power, but mainly solar photovoltaic because they are modular and are more attached to the citizen. As usual, when trying to introduce new technologies, first reaction for citizens, it is not in my backyard. With an increase in exposure to projects and higher degrees of awareness, people start to be less negative and to engage in consultations for projects to be assured that projects will not affect their quality of life. One of the main drivers for large-scale deployment of renewable energy is the co-benefits, the wealth creation. With increasing number of sites being developed for photovoltaic projects, local citizens surrendering the projects start to increase their demand for benefiting of the projects. Wealth is then shared with the communities through taxes to the solar projects, benefit sharing plans of project developers, dedicated funds, or opening the equity of the project to local actors. At present, in countries with large-scale deployment of solar, citizens have realized that photovoltaic technologies has democratized energy, allowing citizens and communities to play new roles. Previously played exclusively by big corporations, such as financing the projects with their own savings, or producing commercial energy at a larger scale, being part of a cooperative, for instance. Finally, there will always be people opposed to projects. Academic literature refers to these attitudes as banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. This lecture is mainly, but not exclusively, focused in community-driven solar projects where citizens are at the same time financing, developing and operating new solar projects. The main body of the presentation is divided into three parts. First of all, we will learn about the concept of community solar power, followed by some insights on the status and trend of community solar projects. Taking into consideration, this is a quite new trend, quite new possibility, so there is not much research and there is not much monitoring and reporting of the activities of community power. There is not even an agreed global definition for these projects. We will finalize with a discussion on policy recommendations to strengthen the role of citizens in the energy transition, and most especially in the solar revolution. Community energy is the term used to describe the wide range of ways that communities can develop, deliver, and benefit from sustainable energy. It can involve supply-side projects, such as renewable energy installation and storage, and demand-side projects, such as community education, energy efficiency, and demand management. Community energy can even include community-based approaches to selling or distributing energy. As per the Coalition for Action of the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, community energy is a project fulfilling any combination of at least two of the following elements. Local stakeholders own the majority of all of the renewable energy projects. Voting control rests with a community-based organization. The majority of social and economic benefits are distributed locally. However, various definitions of community energy are found worldwide depending on a government's intent to steer investment and ownership in renewable energy generation in this direction. Requirements for communities to qualify as a community energy project may be more or less stringent depending on the respective policy actual intent to democratize the energy access and to create a distributed energy system. This makes global stock-taking of community energy projects very difficult, as mentioned before. How the community solar power project works. The sunlight hits the solar panel in the community solar field, generating electricity. The electricity generated flows through an on-site meter to the electrical utility grid. The utility company measures the electricity generated, calculates a dollar value for the power, and distributes this dollar value proportionally to the members of the community solar program. It can be residents, it can be businesses, municipalities, or other institutions. The value of this solar electricity produced from the right is applied as a monetary credit to each member's electricity bill. In some countries, there is an alternative to the net billing, the net metering. The electricity fed into the grid by the community solar is discounted from the consumption. Community solar projects have proven to provide large benefit to the host communities, such as employment, increasing awareness, knowledge and social acceptance, increasing the economic resilience of the communities. Furthermore, a community solar project could create pride of ownership that has far-reaching behavioral impacts on all sustainability activities. Other proven benefits of community solar projects are the increased transparency in planning and construction, broader distribution of assets and influence within the energy system, an opportunity for indigenous people, diversity of actors, implementation of projects that might not be developed by major actors. Local energy needs are more likely to be met. Increased pool of funders. Local ownership increased the number of people and available funds for investment. Communities could further play a pivotal role in the democratization and decentralization of the energy system around the world. Decentralized energy systems are in many cases more resilient to climate change and disasters and more reliable than centralized systems. They also sustain fewer network losses. Contrary to the general perception, community-owned companies have also been proven to have the capability not only to provide quality services to their customers, but also to do it at lower energy prices than commercial energy companies. This is due, among other reasons, because the expected return on equity of citizens is a lot less lower than companies, and solar are very capital-intensive projects. But community solar is facing many challenges. Among them, there are the implementation challenges. Key regulatory challenges mainly comprise lack of access to the energy market and discrimination against smaller investors. The global trend toward auction system has become a serious obstacle for community-based investment as well as for other small and medium investors. As a rule, auctions tend to favor larger investors because they increase the planning risk to a degree that only investors with a large project portfolio and a strong balance sheet can tackle. In addition, and in general, community energy projects suffer more from regulatory changes such as changes in tariff structure because they cannot compensate for losses in other projects with gains from another project, and they are more vulnerable to regulatory risk. Financial challenges are related to communities' capacity to raise equity and their lack of access to third-party finance. This challenge is of particular significance in developing countries. Although communities may be able to make regular payments for loans from the returns of the energy projects, providing the equity, which allows ownership and control of the project, is a significant obstacle. So far, no established business model have been able to translate expected regular payments and economic welfare gains or even land rights into equity. The lack of a clear and widely agreed legal definition of community energy and low awareness together comprise a third challenge to the widespread adoption of this approach. Cultural aspect can also hinder the development of community energy. Democratic decision-making and shared ownership are common practice in some countries. In others, these are challenging practices due to historical events and societal characteristics. In addition, even the best-intentioned community energy projects do not automatically guarantee that benefits will be distributed equally within the hosting community. This can create tensions within communities and reduce the positive impacts and wide acceptance that community energy projects could otherwise have. The common funds of community solar projects. Partnerships are generally governed by a management board, and rights are linked to the financial stake of each partner. Partners are usually in charge of day-to-day management decisions with full entrepreneurial responsibility. Local community members may be limited partners and are, in that case, consulted on key issues. Cooperatives are democratic structures that follow a set of internationally agreed principles and make decisions on a one-member, one-vote basis. Day-to-day operation is governed by an elected board. Cooperatives usually raise the entire project investment through equity. The structure may vary from one country to another. Cooperatives tend to be the most common and natural organizational structure of community solar initiatives. They may be owned by producers, employees, consumers, other businesses, the community, or a mix of these. Community trusts and foundations are established to ensure that returns on investment are used for specific local community purposes. They allow for the sharing of benefits from solar projects with those citizens that do not have enough money to invest. Development trusts are enterprises that usually focus on economic, environmental, or social issues. Development trusts may take a number of different legal forms: a charity, a company limited by warranty, a community interest company, an industrial provident society. Non-for-profit, customer-owned enterprises are similar to cooperatives, but with special rules. They can limit the power of individuals who own multiple properties by keeping voting. This arrangement ensures that the enterprise remains committed to benefiting the local community through reliable and affordable services. In some places, this model is applied to community solar power projects that rely on a small or independent grid network. Housing associations are private, non-profit organizations that can form a number of different legal structures. For example, a housing association may be an industrial provident society, a cooperative society, or a company limited by warranty. Third-party owned community solar projects are plants whose electricity is shared by a community. The primary purpose of this solar community is to allow members of a community the opportunity to share the benefit of solar power even if they cannot or prefer not to install solar panels on their property. Project participation benefits from the electricity generated by the community solar farm, which costs less than the price they would ordinarily pay to their utility. Finally, local governments are important actors in community renewable energy. Engagement in local public utilities is usually related to the representative logic of state and citizenship. Under the concept of municipalization, local governments, often in collaboration with community cooperatives, manage and operate local power utilities to provide a not-for-profit electricity service. New business models are being deployed around solar community power. Often, community solar members can take advantage without purchasing solar panels. Typically, the solar array is owned by a solar company or third-party investor who builds the array on a field or on a large commercial rooftop. The owner of this array then sells the electricity to members of a community who wants to buy renewable solar energy. A more sophisticated model is Mosaic, that finances community solar or solar home system with savings of other citizens that invest in these projects for a modest interest rate. Community Solar Hub is a web-based platform that brings together projects with citizens. On the status and trends on solar community projects. As mentioned before, it is very difficult to gather information on the status and trend of solar community projects. As discussed in the previous section, while there is a consensus on general characteristics of a solar community project, there is not an agreed definition. This makes it very difficult to track these projects. In addition, many of these projects are happening behind the counter. They are small, they are not tracked, and there is not any registry. Furthermore, community solar is being deployed mainly under the net billing and net metering schemes. There is an increasing number of countries and national and national level approving this kind of regulations. Without considering the projects that are developed with the main goal to provide access to energy in less developed countries, we can say that solar community is mainly happening in North America, Europe, and Australia. If we look to the United States, figures from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in a study from 2016. In 2016, the number of solar community projects in the United States of America were estimated in 108. There is an exponential growth of solar community power. These projects involve 7,000 citizens. Total installed capacity is estimated in 110 megawatts that produce 230,000 megawatt-hours per year. There is a great potential to reach underserved markets. It could represent half of the new US PV market by 2020. Mainly, customers can install roof solar, but they will be willing to develop a solar community project to share the benefits. In 2016, at least 18 states has enacted or proposed enabling regulation. Nevertheless, enabling regulation is not a prerequisite for project development. In 2016, after 10 years of the first project, 26 states has at least one project. More than half of projects are located in Colorado, Minnesota, or Massachusetts, with 36% in Colorado. On the other hand, about 70% of installed capacity is located in Arizona and Colorado. About 78% of the projects were smaller than 1 megawatts. If we look into Europe, there is a network of 1,500 European energy cooperatives, and they gather 1 million citizens who are active in the energy transition. Community solar can be found in at least 11 countries of the European Union. In December 2018, the revised Renewable Energy Directive 2018-2001 entered into force as part of the Clean Energy for All European package, aimed at keeping the European Union a global leader in renewable energies, and more broadly, helping the European Union to meet its emission reduction commitments under the Paris Agreement. The new directive establishes a new binding renewable energy target for the European Union for 2020 of at least 32%, with a clause of a possible upward revision by 2023. With regards to community projects, the directive says that the new renewable directive will also include rights and provision to support renewable energy communities. Member states will also be required to assess the potential and existing barriers to the development of energy communities, to develop frameworks that allow communities to access markets without discrimination and on a level playing field. Renewable energy communities will also have a right to set up energy sharing arrangements. Further mandates of the European Directive are: member states will need to ensure citizens that are vulnerable benefit from participating in a renewable energy community. Member states must put in place tools to facilitate access to finance and information. Regarding the status and the trends in a community solar in Australia. In the past 15 years has seen the emergence of a growing community movement in Australia around renewable energies. This has predominantly been motivated by a desire to take direct and empowering action on climate change at a local level, especially in the context of wavering Australian government policies and support for both carbon reduction and renewable energy over the same period of time. The community energy sector in Australia has grown from not much more than an abstract concept in 2006 to a point where by early 2015 there are at least 19 community energy projects operating and at least 59 community energy groups developing, delivering, and or operating projects. With almost 10 megawatts of installed renewable energy systems at the end of 2014, the sector is delivering over 50,000 megawatt-hours of a clean energy each year, and avoiding over 43,000 tons of carbon emissions. The favorite technology option is solar PV, and this ranges from household scale to medium scale installation up to 250 kilowatts. The first community-owned solar farm with a capacity of 99 kilowatts was launched in October 2014. Today, there are at least 105 community energy projects in Australia. Community Power Agency vision of Australia is for a fair and sustainable energy sector that provides real benefit for citizens and the environment. The Australian Agency for Community Power is specialized in supporting community groups to navigate the complex process of setting up a community-owned renewable energy project. The Community Power Agency mission is to help grow a vibrant community renewable energy sector in Australia through building the capacity of communities on the ground and working collaboratively with other organizations to address systemic barriers facing the sector as a whole. To achieve these goals, the Community Power Agency engaged in three main areas of work: supporting and building the capacity of community projects on the ground, engaging in sector-level advocacy, collaborating in development, and third, developing resources and doing research. How it looks the future for the community solar project. As traditional sources of energy deplete, renewable energy becomes more important to the continued prosperity of our world. Solar farms can provide cheap, clean, consistent, and conflict-free power all over the world. While private installation will continue to be a good option for land and business owners, community solar farms are a better option for the average energy user, renters, lower-income residents, and those who land simply won't accommodate solar panels will still be able to enjoy a cost-effective renewable energy source with a community solar installation. This increase in demand will drive innovation, lower costs for everyone, and support a healthier environment for us all. Taking into consideration the main characteristics of the sustainable energy transition that the world is pursuing since recent years, decarbonization, decentralization, digitalization, and democratization, it is clear that community solar will play a critical role in the solar revolution. on policy recommendation to maximize value of community solar projects. There are 5 key sub-strategy areas are identified as needed to be addressed in order to grow the community solar energy sector. First one, on community energy models, the strategy should address increase the accessibility of a system viable community energy models, create an environment that encourages and fosters innovation and development of new community energy models. Second, regarding finance and funding, the objectives of the strategy are increase the availability and accessibility of funding and finance that community energy projects need to point where they are operating. Progressively reduce cost of community energy projects to increase their economic viability. Maximize revenue stream available to community energy projects, secure adequate resources for community energy support providers. Third, on capacity building strategy to develop solar community will have these following objectives. Develop the community energy sector into a vibrant, robust, highly skilled, and adaptable sector. Fill capacity from within through a number of innovative communication, networking, and skills development initiatives. The solar community strategy should address the profile raising and stakeholder support by increasing key actors' awareness of community energy and its benefits. Assist community energy groups to communicate the benefits to the local community and the wider public. Finally, a successful strategy for community solar must propose policy and regulatory reform. Foster a policy and regulatory environment that proactively remove barriers to and supports the growth of the community energy sector to reach its full potential. Last but not least, solar community energy strategy should be included in regional development strategies to make clear the link between solar energy and regional challenges, such as energy poverty, energy scarcity, and unemployment. Legal frameworks and regulation. Local authorities can require a minimal level of community involvement in energy infrastructure by amending planning regulations. Energy strategies should be amended to include targets for community energy, indicating long-term commitment. Strategies should define community energy, but avoid overly limiting definitions that would prevent all possible legal forms from being used. National and regional governments should explore current various community energy structures. Develop regulation to address legal, financial, and administrative barriers, for instance, empowering consumers and communities to actively participate in the electricity market and generate, consume, and sell electricity back to the grid, taking into account the costs and benefits of the presumed active market participation for the system as a whole. Adaptation of connection to grid integration regulation. Promoting energy demand management thanks to new technology like smart homes, smart appliances, and smart meters, in combination with electricity supply dynamic prices, contracts that consumers will be entitled to request with a smart meter from their supplier. Promoting consumers' engagement with an aggregator by establishing a regulatory framework that makes it easier for aggregators to operate in the market. Promoting storage technology by making its benefits from appropriate pricing. This will allow its flexibility and usage to be adequately remunerated. The introduction of scarcity pricing and the strengthening of the pricing are all measures that can support longer-term investment in the technology. On finance. Financial support, such as project development grants or low-interest loans, should be provided to groups who are interested in building community projects to enable them to perform feasibility studies and access consultancy services. A key driving force behind the emergence of energy communities in Germany has been access to country's feed-in tariff, guaranteeing a minimum purchasing price for energy from renewable sources. Energy communities should be explicitly supported in existing support scheme with minimum barriers to involvement. Although it may not be possible at a municipal level, investment and tax relief can be granted to community energy projects. Relief can also be applied to charges on consumption of energy. Public procurement can be used to support community energy development. Tenders for energy infrastructure can apply a minimum requirement for community ownership of shares, and regions could preference community-run models for provision of energy to public buildings and infrastructure, such as street lighting or district heating. On expertise and guidance. Regional authorities can organize workshops and educational efforts to build capacity for the creation of community energy organizations and can support the training of individuals for managing and maintaining renewable energy technologies. Authorities can also ensure that expertise is available when needed by community developers by providing an information point dedicated to community energy development. This can be done in-house or through development of independent organizations such as Community Energy Agency. Local government departments should be available to help community energy planners with regulatory issues such as land use planning, permitting, and environmental regulation. Authorities can develop rooftop solar maps assessing the physical, technical, and economic potential for each roof in the community. Finally, on awareness raising. Regional policymakers can lead the way in communicating about the benefits of community energy, highlighting not only the economic benefits for those who get involved, but also the broader societal challenges that could be overcome. Public authorities can help to kick-start the process of community energy development by performing a regional assessment of renewable sources availability and demonstrating that there is potential return on investment. The assessment should also include a mapping of relevant stakeholders and those with technical and legal capacity to assist in community energy development. Public authorities can mandate their energy agencies or other suitable players to create a platform that can gather citizens to inform them about community energy and enabling the discussion. In this last part, we will come to a conclusion of the most important information which we collected today in this presentation. We can conclude that community solar cannot be considered anymore anecdotal, but a global movement. The decrease in the cost of the photovoltaic technologies, the increasing awareness of citizens, the development of new business models, and the implementation of supportive legal and regulatory frameworks are the reasons behind the exponential growth of solar communities in the last years. The community solar projects bring multiple benefits to the citizens and the communities that host these projects. Nevertheless, they still face multiple legal, financial, technical, and administrative barriers. At this point, we come to the end of the module on maximizing the value chain, community solar. I would like to thank you for your attention. As before, you are invited to test your understanding of the contents in the following small quiz. Thank you very much.